Has an Exit podcast with host Teddy Tarantino. New episodes every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to subscribe.
All right. Hey, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. I'm your host, Teddy Tarantino. What's up, bro? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, dude. So, is your name Alex and your last initial is P? Why do they call you AP?
AP, yeah. So my full name.
You don't have to say your government if you don't
All
want
right, cool.
to.
I don't want to. People who know my full
But
name.
you're Alex P.
Yeah, it's a really Spanish name, yeah.
But they call you AP.
Yeah, they call me AP. And it's funny, right? Because, like, AP, like, it happens to be my initials, but it's really like a play on words.
Always paid?
I wish. Fucking no. So, you know the watch Audemars Piguet, right?
Of course.
So, I was the type of person growing up where, like if you wanted to get into some shit or if you had some beef or you had to go do this or do that, like, and you would call me, I'd be like the movie The Town, like, all right, whose car are we taking? Like, I was never like, scared. I never scared. I didn't second guess anything. Like, so I got AP because he's always on that time and your initials are AP, like the Audemars Piguet. And it kind of just stuck. And it's funny that when I got into recovery that people started calling me that.
Oh, yeah?
Because it was a name that I used to be called back home.
You're using.
Yeah, and I didn't really like it, and I wanted to get away from who that person was.
And then people started calling you AP anyways.
Yeah, but then, like, it had a different meaning when they were saying it. You know, they were just calling me AP to call me AP. And actually, almost everybody, with the exception of like one person, calls me AP.
Yeah, I don't think of you as AP.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
I mean, you can if you want to. I don't care. When I'm at meetings, it's always AP. You know?
Wow. Maybe I'll start calling you AP for now.
Yeah. My mom's called me that once. I thought it was really weird.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What, so where are you from?
So I'm from down here. I'm from Miami Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Palmetto Hospital, and I grew up there my entire life. Literally my entire life, like by Hard Rock Stadium now.
I could never tell when I met you if you were young or old. Because there's some people in recovery that, like, they look really young, but they're like 36 or something.
Yeah, dude, I'm 23. I'll be 24 in 10 days.
Nice.
October 14th.
What do you do for your birthday?
Shit, I don't know. I don't know, man. See, for me, for birthdays, like, I'm not a big birthday guy, right? Like, typically for birthdays, I don't really end up doing, especially like back then, like before I got into recovery, my birthdays consisted of, I was probably chilling with the homies, I was smoking, and I was getting high after it was all over. Yeah. You know, because when I used to like to use by myself. And then I never really did much, you know. But this time I'm like, all right, well, I might as well celebrate my life. You know, I'm alive, I'm clean. You know, my life's a lot better. So definitely dinner. I know some of the boys want to go to Diamond Dolls. So shout out Diamond Dolls. You know.
What Okay, yeah, we're doing a dinner. I forgot. Yeah, we're going to dinner. Yeah, you gotta at least go to dinner. I don't really do much for my birthday either.
Yeah, I mean, what different? It's just another day, you know.
Well, I just go so hard on my clean date, so like to me, I don't want to like be obnoxious and have like 2 crazy parties or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, your parties are always lit for your clean date.
Yeah,
like I remember when I came back recently. When I came back, you had just had yours, and I was able to go.
15 years?
Yeah, the 15 years one. Yeah, and that shit was dope, dude.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like I'd rather celebrate my clean time than celebrate my birthday. You know.
So you got a year clean when?
October 19th.
October 19th.
So yeah, it's actually 5 days after my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember.
This is your first time getting a year clean?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
2 years into recovery.
So you started getting clean 2 years ago, and now you just got a year clean.
Yeah. So August 2021, I got out of jail, and I remember I detoxed in jail. I got clean in jail, and I got out of jail, and I went to this treatment center, and I begged them to take me in because you know I was clean. So like realistically, like I had no real reason to go to treatment, right? From what they were telling me, you know, because I didn't really know how it worked. And I just remember begging them. I was like, please, I do not want to go back home. I don't want to go back to that life around those people, just in that general area, like people, places, and things. Like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Like, please take me. I was like, dude, I will go get high right now and then come back just so you can take me. And they're like, all right.
Yeah.
We'll take you in. We'll let you in.
Did you have insurance or something?
Yeah, I had insurance. It's just like for them, I guess, certain treatment centers, they need you to be, which is really dumb, you know?
Well, your insurance company isn't going to authorize you days if you haven't used.
That's true.
So that's why.
Yeah. So, but, you know, luckily they let me in, and I'm glad they did, you know, because actually, funny enough, right? So I have an uncle in recovery, and he knows some people down here. He has like 36. He should be coming up on 37 years clean. He lives in El Paso. So originally, I went out there for like, my mom sent me out there for a while because I was just it was getting really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And she sent me out there to stay with him, and like that's when the seed was planted. You know, like I wasn't really like open to it. Like he would tell me stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever. He'd take me to meetings, and I'm just like, and meetings out there in El Paso, I don't know if you've ever been, but like it's a lot of cholos out there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard body Mexican people, you know, like, and they're old timers, you know. So like I really was like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, I'll meet you guys here in like 30 years. Like I'm not ready yet. Like this is obviously not for me, you know. And then I came, you know, I moved to Fort Lauderdale, and I realized that, you know, there's a younger recovery crowd.
So when you came to Fort Lauderdale, was the first time you seen like young people in recovery?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which I never really saw.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know if I would have got clean because this is all I know. It's like my first meeting, there was 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
So it was, I just thought every meeting had that. I didn't know that there was anything else.
Yeah, for me it was the opposite. All I thought was there was a bunch of old people in meetings, and it's like, dude, everybody my age is probably getting high right now. So like, why can't I just come with them? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful to have my first meeting was 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
you know?
that was my first meeting too.
Yeah,
that was my first meeting in Fort Lauderdale. That was my first meeting.
Yeah. So what's your story like? What was your childhood like? When did you start using?
So for me, right, my childhood, like, you know, Hispanic family, Mexican, Cuban, Colombian.
You're Mexican, Cuban, Colombian,
and Native American.
And Native American.
So I'm just really just straight up Latino. You know, people ask me, I'm Latino, dude. Like I'm a whole bunch of things. And in my family, so I'm one of 4 brothers. I grew up with 2 older brothers, 1 younger. So I was the middle child. You know, and like my childhood, like, so I went through a lot of traumatic events in my childhood, like off the rip. You know, like, you know, from the ages of like 4 to 7, you know, one of my older brothers, he would molest me, you know, and he was abusing me sexually, physically, mentally.
Wow, how old was
he? So I was 4, he was like 10, 11.
Damn, that's crazy. He
Yeah.
was molesting you at 4?
Yeah, from 4 to 7, right? And then...
When's the first time you ever talked about that?
So, actually, I didn't talk about it for like 15 years.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. It wasn't until 2021, I'll never forget, I remember my mom walked in on me. I was high. I was getting high. I had a whole bunch of shit on me, and she caught me nodding off. And, like, she had already known I've been getting high. This is the first time she, like, actually seen me with all of it. And she was just like, I just remember her asking me, like, why do you do this? And, like, I was just explaining her all the shit, all the pain that I felt. And then it came out, what happened.
Wow.
Like, what really, like, started it. You know, because, like, that shit fucked me up, dude. Like,
yeah, for
like
sure.
I always felt like I wasn't enough. And then I would always have weird relationships with guys older than me because it was like, dude, like, I just couldn't really trust anybody. You know, because my own brother was willing to do something like that to me. And I was just a fucking kid. And... you know, I never understood why he did it. We never spoke about it. I don't really talk to him, you know. He just had a kid like a year ago, but it was just like it was like I used to blame him, right? But then I blamed the occurrence of that happening for a lot of the shit that I did in my life and a lot of things that happened in my life, you know, because then at 10 years old, right, my grandfather passes away. You know, he died in his sleep, but I found him dead, right? Like I was the one that found him.
You guys were close?
I mean, yes and no. Like he was living with us, but he had dementia and Alzheimer's, so he didn't really remember me, right? Like he didn't really remember anybody. Like for me, right? Because he was born in 1910, and he passed away in 2010.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he passed away 4 months before he turned 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you found him.
Yeah, I found him. And nobody had any fucking explanation for me. I had all these questions. Nobody had anything to tell me. Nobody, like, all it was, you know, typical Hispanic family, like, you got to be strong. You can't cry. You can't be sad. Like, get over it, you know? And for me, right, like, so it feels like I woke up at the age of 10, right? You know, and I meet a lot of people that they remember stuff from their childhood, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old. And, like, I can't relate. Because for me, I only remember like the traumatic shit that I went through, right? It's just like 2 things. So like all those other things are just blocked from my memory because of these 2 things that like for me altered the course of my life, right? Because then 3 years later, I'm fucking 13, I'm getting high, and then my life just was a blur for like the next 8 years of me using. And you know, like and it wasn't until I got to recovery where I realized that, you know, all of those things that, like, I thought that because of those things, I had to be, you know, who I was when I was using, right? Like, I had to be something that, not that I wasn't, but I convinced myself that I was this, you know, piece of shit, worthless person. Like I didn't belong. I wasn't loved. Like, and because this pain was inflicted on me, now I have to inflict it on the rest of the world, right? Because it's me versus the fucking world.
Yeah.
Like God damned me from the beginning and gave me this shitty deck of cards, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just be this fucking rolling ball of chaos, this fucking tornado, because I don't know how to deal with how I'm feeling because I was a fucking kid, you know, I was innocent. It wasn't like, you know, I was like 15 when this happened. Like I'd only been on this earth for like 3-4 years, you know, I didn't fucking deserve that. And you know, for a while I convinced myself that I did. I thought I did something, you know, and it's crazy because now when I got to the rooms, I've been more open to talking about it. You know, which I never was before. I was always ashamed of it because it's like,
yeah, I think like 50% of the rooms has some type of molestation.
And I didn't know that, you know, and I finally felt like, okay, like I'm not alone here. But it took a while. It took a while. Like with my sponsor, like, you know, when we finally, you know, talked about it, like I was scared that he was gonna be like, dude, like, get out of here, you fucking weirdo. Like, I don't fuck with you. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you let something like that happen to you, right? Because that's what my mind tells me. And like, he was literally like, he's like, okay. He's like, I love you. Like, what do you want to do about it?
Yeah, there's stuff that I did in my 4-step that when I was talking to my sponsor, probably like 2nd grade. And as an adult, you would think like you just don't have shame about it because you were so young. But I remember when I told him this, I was like, this is like one of the most shameful things ever. And I remember he was like, bro, you were in 2nd grade. Yeah. And I was just like, I guess you're right. You know? But if no one really says that to you, you don't really talk about it, you do feel a lot of shame for things that happen in your childhood. Even though you're a victim or you're just young and you're just a kid, you don't know. Yeah. What was using like for you? Like what was the progression? So,
you know, usually like kids, right? Like they start off smoking weed, right? Weed's a gateway drug. Like that's just like, and you know, they bring the DARE program in. It's like, oh, don't start smoking weed because then you'll start smoking crack. And like for me, like where I grew up, like, you know, I was always the youngest for the most part. So I was always hanging out with people older than me, right? Like I just remember always hanging out with people older than me. And even like I would hang out with my brother's friends, you know, people older than me. And they had already passed that gateway part, right? They already been smoked weed. Like now they're doing blues, they're doing dope, like they're doing coke, like they're doing all this shit. And I'm hanging around them, so it's in front of me. So like, you know, at 13, you know, I'm doing dope. I'm smoking weed, I'm doing dope. And like it didn't really progress until I got older. And then now I'm with kids my age, and they're all doing it, and I'm doing it with them. And then it got to a point, right, where like I was the type of friend, I always took it too far. Yeah, you know, I always went. I was on the phone with my homeboy like a couple days ago, and we were talking about like the tiers of all of our friends in the group, right? And like he was like, I'm tier 1, dude, but like you're above me. Like you like would go to jail for shit. Like you would like put yourselves in these shitty ass situations that like you would somehow find your way out of. And you know, and using was just my escape, dude. Like it's so loud in my fucking head for the most part. Like even now to this day, but like back then, like it was always so loud in my fucking head. Like, and I couldn't stop the voices, right? And like I'm in a constant war with myself. So when I would use, like, it would just be silent, right? Everything would just shut off. Like I was numb. I didn't have to feel anything, right? Because like I'm harboring all these resentments and these feelings, right? And I'm lashing out in, you know, this way or that way. But like when I would use, like, I didn't have to do any of that. When I'd use, it would just be serenity almost, right? And for me, like, I used to like using alone more than I used to like using with like my friends. Like, like I used to like using in my car. Right? Because for me, it was like, okay, this is my car. I can control this environment. I can let somebody in. I can not let somebody in. I can lock the doors. I'm in my own bubble, you know? And dude, I would spend like 6-7 hours in my car just getting high. Just find somewhere to park and get high. And like, I'd watch something. Sometimes I would just sit there in silence and just not think or not feel.
When did you start doing the opiates?
So 13, 14, like I had tried it for the first time. I liked it, you know, but like I was also 13, 14, and like I didn't really have a lot of money. And like, you know, my brother's friends didn't always want to hang out with me all the time. Like this fucking jit, like what is he doing here, you know? Yeah. So it wasn't until like 16, 17 where I ran into blues. And dude, those were it for me, man. I used to love doing blues. I used to snort them, smoke them, like that was really like what it was for me. And I like to say I did real blues at one point, and it wasn't just like fentanyl, but like
Wow.
I'm
That's
pretty
crazy.
sure it was fentanyl the entire time if it wasn't. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy because like if you've never seen real blues, you probably don't know what pressed ones look
yeah.
like.
But so somebody explained it to me, right? And like and I remembered it, right? So like a real blue, like for me, like when I would snort them, and then you can feel the flavor of like the berry in the back of your throat. And I remember that, you know, and sometimes I can still remember what that tastes like. And I was like, okay, well, those are definitely real because like when I did it with the fake ones, because there was a point where I knew I was doing fake ones, I could taste the fucking chalk. And I was like, this is disgusting.
Don't they mush up different?
Yeah. And like, I think the real ones you can't smoke.
You could smoke the real ones.
think you
Of
could smoke the real
course.
ones?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I remember one time me and my ex-girlfriend, we tried to smoke like an M box, and it wasn't smoking. And I was like, dude, like,
That's probably, yeah, it's not because it's real.
you think it was because it was fake that I couldn't smoke it?
I don't know what it was, but yeah, people have been smoking blues forever.
That's what yeah.
I was like, you could basically smoke any pill.
Yeah.
It's gonna burn. You know
This
what I
one,
mean?
like, it just went all black and it didn't smoke. And I was
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, I was like, I was so confused about that.
No,
I
you
was,
thought you got a real one? No,
yeah,
there's
I was
something
like,
going on with it.
I had to convince myself, like, okay, maybe he just served me real drugs because
Yeah.
he fucks with me, you know, like.
No,
he
that's
didn't.
crazy.
He didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, you got served like cardboard or
Yeah,
something.
probably.
That's crazy. So how much were fake blues at the time?
They were 30 still.
Wow, that's crazy.
I would pay 30.
30 for one pill.
Yeah, for one. It's
Wow.
insane because
30
you
for
guys were
30.
paying fucking like
$7.
$7
Yeah.
and getting like a bunch.
Yeah.
Nah, bro. I remember like
They were 10 for a solid long. Like, they were 7 for a while, and then they were like 8. Then I remember they just skipped 9, and they just went to 10. Then, like, when I was getting clean, they were like 12.
Yeah.
Then, like, towards the end, I heard people 13, 14. And then when I got clean, they just went crazy.
Yeah.
Well, people started doing Dilaudid at that time. So, like, when I was using... When I first started using in 2003, like, opiates, it was, like, oxys were the thing. Like, only oxys. People used to not even want blues. There was times where people would be like, "Yo, I have blues," and people would be like, "No, just wait till you get oxys." And because I don't know, if you're into oxys, you're just only into oxys.
Yeah.
And I remember oxys started getting hard to get. Even like the generic ones were hard to get.
Yeah.
Then there were blues. Then when blues started to get expensive, I got clean right about like in 2008. I got clean, and then everyone started doing Dilaudid. But with the Dilaudid, you can snort them, but everyone shoots them.
yeah.
So that's when
Okay.
all my friends started like really shooting up, and then then your generation is the fentanyl.
Yeah. I mean,
And the pressing the pills. Like I had friends that were using that were like, "Yeah, bro, we're just buying fentanyl and pressing pills."
see that happened to me, right? Like I didn't know I was using fentanyl, and then I found out that I was doing fentanyl. I was like, dude, I might as well just buy fentanyl. Like that's really what I'm addicted to, obviously. So like, I'm just cut out the middleman, like, and be like, oh yeah, man, I just got a new batch of Perk 30s. In my mind, I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like I know it's fentanyl. Like whatever. Like just give it to me. I don't care.
So wait, so where were you buying straight fentanyl at?
So for me,
Were you buying it on the street? They sell it on the street like
they
that,
do sell it.
like
Some
heroin?
People, some people do sell it on the street. They sell it the caps. You got the red cap, you got the blue cap. Like,
But they sell it like it's heroin.
what do you mean?
Like when people are buying it, do they think it's heroin? They think it's fentanyl, or they don't even care. They just know that it's like a opiate.
I think most people don't care. Some people do. Like for me, I was the type of drug addict where I was gonna ask you, like, "Yo, what is this?" Like I wanted to know. I was like, I just wanted to know everything, you know. So like, I just wanted to know what I was doing, not because I was worried about what I was doing, just because so I could read up on it.
My friend who was on the podcast, I remember when he first got clean, I was asking what pills did he do or like what drugs he was doing. He's like, yeah, I do like China White, and I'm like, you mean heroin? And he's like, nah, it's just like China White, I buy it from my boy. And I'm like, because he was kind of like, he didn't want people to know that he's doing, like, he didn't want to say he does heroin.
Yeah.
But it's like, bro, if you're buying China White on the street, it's an opiate, it's a powder. Even if it's not all heroin, like that's the same category as heroin.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, if you're doing any opiate, you're basically doing heroin.
Yeah.
But like, you don't want to say that.
Yeah, that's like people who drink lean, right? They don't realize they're drinking liquid heroin.
Yeah, it's like if you're doing lean, you're basically doing heroin.
Yeah, and you're probably
heroin.
doing a way quicker
Yeah.
way to fucking kill yourself.
Yeah,
by
for
drinking
sure.
it that way. And I've drunk it a few times.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm not like a lean junkie or anything.
I remember when I did lean, I was just like, you might as well just do pills.
Yeah, like, because then like I'm drinking it and I'm like gnawing off, fucking spilling the cup. Like
Yeah.
that's an expensive ass fucking cup. You know, like
Yeah, you gotta lick it off the floor.
yeah, dude. I get that Lil Wayne video now. You ever seen him? She's interviewing him.
No, what happened?
And he kicks over his cup of lean, and he's like, "Oh my god, that's an expensive ass cup. My bad. That's a."
Oh no, it's so funny.
Yeah, dude.
No.
I get it. Like I
Yeah,
get
I
it,
love
dude.
Lil Wayne.
Yeah, man. That's one of my. I think for me, Kanye.
Even your generation of Lil Wayne fans.
Bro, me. So for me, growing up, it was.
You're like 8 years younger than me.
It was
7 years younger.
Yeah, I was born in '99.
9 years younger than me.
Yeah. So my generation, for me, Kanye,
Mm-hmm.
Wayne, and 50 towards the end, really. But like for me, that Kanye, Wayne, and then Drake, you know.
Wayne, wow, yeah, Wayne was part of my generation, like
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
And
yeah, he's been
it's
rapping.
crazy because a lot of his
14.
songs like aren't on Spotify. They're all like on Dat Piff.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's crazy. Like all the songs I kind of grew up with, you can't really find them unless you go on like that Piff.
But now like Apple Music's starting to add like
Really?
a couple. Yeah, like the other day, dude.
They don't
like,
have like his mixtapes on there, do they?
They have some of the No Ceilings.
Really?
Yeah, like fucking. You ever heard his song Shoes?
Yeah.
She called me dickhead, spicy like a big red. Like they got that there on Apple Music.
Wow. Yeah, every once in a while I get nostalgic and I'll go on the
Yeah.
Dat Piff app and just listen
Dude,
to all
I
of them.
remember when I was using LimeWire, dude. Like, I used to be on LimeWire,
Yeah,
like,
of
just
course.
fucking downloading songs, crashing my fucking computer, giving it, like, the worst kind of
Liars.
fucking... And this was the computer, like, back then, everybody had to use the same computer. And I would be on fucking LimeWire, like, downloading, like, a bunch of fucking music. And even, like, I remember back then there was, like, a phase where, like, people would listen to, like, sped up music. And, like, I used to download just a bunch of sped up music.
I listen
and
to like the slow down version.
you like the chopped and slowed?
Yeah, the chopped and screwed.
Chopped and screwed,
Yeah, I like the chopped and screwed. And I listen to a lot of 3 6 Mafia.
I do like 3 6 Mafia.
Yeah. All right, so you start doing opiates. What like events happen that are like, you know, apparent that your life is getting worse?
So it really started when I graduated high school, right? And I barely graduated high school, dude. I graduated by like the fucking skin of my teeth. And because then I graduated high school and I was like, okay, like now, you know, like I ended up I went to college for a year up in Fort Myers. And dude, I didn't even like go to class. Like, because like for me, right, like my using was based around like, because I was living with my mom, you know, my dad, right, like he wasn't an absentee father, but like he was there physically, but like emotionally and like verbally and all that stuff, like he was never there, you know, like he would just be like, he was just there, you know, like how that fucking camera is just like right there, like, and I could walk past that camera and it won't say anything to me. That's kind of how my dad was in my life. So my mom had to play mom and dad, right? And my mom is overly emotional and my dad is unemotional. So my mom was always up my ass because my brothers moved out, you know.
What was your relationship like with your brothers?
So, man, I used to fight with them a lot. Like, I used to fight with them a lot. Like, even like, you know, like, after all the things that happened with that one brother, like, I would still fight with them a lot. Because they would just, you know, fucking typical brother shit. They would bully me, tease me, you know, and, like, they'd pick on me. And so, like, it was just, like, I don't know. I would constantly fight with them. Like, I would annoy the shit out of them. Like, I was just being a little brother, you know. But, like, now, like, I talk to my oldest brother, you know, occasionally, every now and then, you know, I'll tap it in with him. But, you know, we weren't, like, you know, your typical close brothers, like, because of the age gap, you know. And then
How much older are they?
So my oldest brother is 11 years older than me, and then the second oldest brother is 6 years older than me, you know. So I mean, it's hard, you know, when you're fucking 19, 18.
I'm super close to my sister. She's 6 years older than me.
Yeah. So I don't know. We never, the men in my family, man, like, we're not like emotional people. You know, like, we don't like to feel things or talk about how we feel. Like, dude, I'm the worst at talking about how I fucking feel.
Yeah.
Like, absolute fucking worst. Girl asks me, how do I feel? I'm just like, you probably know better than I do, you know, because I wear my emotions on my sleeve, you know, so, like, it's hard for me to convey my words. So, you know, with my mom, she's overly emotional, right? So she would be up my ass, especially when they moved out, right? Because now it's like, okay, well, now I'm considered the oldest child in the house. So, like, she would always want to know what I'm doing and who I'm doing with it. And, like, you know, I'm using, so I'm good at manipulating. I'm still in the point where I'm good at hiding it, you know? But, like, I just wanted to use in peace. So that's why I was able to go to college. I was supposed to play soccer in college. And, dude, like, I didn't go to classes. You know, I wouldn't leave my dorm. Like, I was just in there getting high. Like, that's all I ever did. And to the point where, like, but the drugs out there were so whack that I was just like, dude, I want to move back home so I can get, you know, good dope again and actually like get high and like and get high with my friends, you know. So then I moved back and I would just like constantly like push the envelope, right? Like I would, you know, I started like first I would start robbing my mom. I would rob my grandmother, you know. I remember one time I literally took my little brother's lunch money. It was only like $10, but like it was enough for me to, you know, to get high and then I progressed from that to like going outside and actually like hitting licks and like, you know, carjacking and like, you know, running through people's wallets and shit like that, to the point where like, you know, and I'm trying to like bring my friends along and like they don't want anything to do with me anymore. So now I'm out here, I'm by myself, right? I'm using by myself. And I started meeting like a lot of shady characters. And that's funny about drugs, right? Like the more and more you progress into your addiction, the more different type of people that you meet. Yeah. You know, and I was meeting like I used to do like for this one guy, he would have me like and I only did this a couple times and it only worked a couple times. It wasn't until the last time where I was like, I'm probably never gonna do that again. But like he would have me go to like these like exotic car things, like where people sell like exotic cars, and he would have me like test drive the car like by myself, convince the guy to let me test drive the car around the block by myself.
You give him your ID?
So yeah, but I would have a fake ID.
Okay.
So I give him the fake ID and be like, all right, and I go test drive it, and then I'd fucking drop it off to him, you know, and then he scratches the VIN, does whatever the fuck with it, and then he would just break me off.
Really?
You know, a good amount, yeah. And
is there statute of limitations about this? Should you be?
I mean, I never got caught for it, so you know, I think it should be okay.
I don't know.
I think it should be okay.
Before we put this out, we'll talk to some people because I don't know because there's probably cameras and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's like more than like.
Yeah. Well,
that's like Grand Theft.
I could tell you the last time that I did it, right? I got set up by the same dude that put me on. He set me up. And I was like, I was so confused about that. But I remember I show up, right? I show up to the place and like there's this one street light on, right? It's like 9:30 on a Saturday. And like I remember walking over, right? Because I parked my car across the street at the Dollar General, right? And I remember I'm just getting high in my car. I'm like, all right, I'm about to do this. And I remember walking over there and like there's this one street light on and I'm like, dude, this feels weird. Like this doesn't feel like any of the other times. Like this feels like a little eerie. And sure enough, like I turn around, right? And this fucking black Nissan Altima, of course, pulls out and these 4 dudes get out of the fucking car and I'm like, oh shit. I was like, fuck, like, okay. And they fucking come up to me and they just start beating the shit out of me. And I remember the dude grabbed his fucking pistol and he fucking pistol whipped me. Right? And now I'm on the ground, right? And I'm looking at these 4 guys, right? And he's holding the gun right to my face. And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, okay, like I'm about to die. But like I was so like high and so numb that like it didn't really like, you know, set in that I was about to die. I was kind of just like, because deep down, like I wanted to die. Deep down, I didn't want to live anymore because I was just tired of my life. Of every day was the same day over and over and over again. And I'll never forget, dude, this guy in a white car, right? I shit you not, he was a white Porsche Cayenne, I think, or a 911, and he was wearing a white T-shirt. He literally rolled his window down and was like, hey, what y'all doing to that young blood, right? And they looked, and they got in the car, they took my wallet, they smashed my phone, and they left. And I walk over to the guy and I'm fucking bleeding shit. And this guy was like that was like my first, like, kind of God moment, where I was like, okay, is it ironic that this guy's in a white car and he's like wearing white and like he just saved me from potentially fucking dying? Like, I was like, okay, I didn't think too much about it, but I was like, that might be a sign. And for me, right, like it's just like I was saying, like in that moment where, you know, I thought I was gonna die, like, you know, my whole life I always thought I was gonna be dead at 19, right? 19 I was gonna die. My life was gonna be what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like a what not to do with your life. You know, like look at this kid. This kid fucked up his entire life, you know, and now he's dead. Just don't do what he does, right? And then I got into recovery and I realized that I can still use my life as an example and how I rised above it, you know? And I never really thought about it like that, you know? And I used all that shit that I went through kind of like as a superpower. Like my you know, my sexual abuse history with my brother, you know, like the death, you know, that I was around with my grandfather, and then like the using and all the pain, like, dude, like for me, like I used to think that those are the reasons why I suck and why I am not good enough, right? And I'll never be good enough. And then I get into recovery. I'm like, dude, I'm better in spite of those things. Because most normal people would never come back from something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but like me, like I decided to, you know, change my life. And it didn't happen the first go around. You know, my first time in recovery, like my sponsor likes to say, it was like, you just loitered. Like, that's all you did. Like, you stood in front of the corner store and like.
Yeah, so like, can you explain to people like what actually being in recovery is versus like people who kind of just go to meetings?
So for me, right, and I like for recovery is, and I like it's the steps. The foundation of recovery is the steps, right, and sponsorship, because you can't go through the steps without having a sponsor, right? Because in the steps is where you grow, right? Like going to meetings is. It's nice to go to meetings like when you first get into it, like you go into meetings, you do the 90 meetings in 90 days, like you meet people, like you start building connections. But like step work is really like where it's at, because that's where all your underlying issues are, you know, and like people who don't work steps, like, you know, they normally don't make it.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's sad because like for me, like I like step work because I know all the answers. They're all everything that I lived through and experienced. So like, why wouldn't I do it?
Is it hard for you? Because you were telling me before we did the podcast that it's like you're not good at reading and writing.
Yeah, it is. And my sponsor is also fucking illiterate. Like, like, and when we do step work, dude, it takes us like 3-4 hours because like he's trying to figure out what the fuck he wrote because he could hardly read it. I'm trying to figure out what I wrote because I could hardly read it. And then we're reading the passages and we're fucking stuttering and taking forever. And so it's a little hard. But like, you know, I learned like through the rooms, like there's certain like readings that I have memorized because I read them over and over and over again. Even though in the beginning I used to butcher them. You know, there's a lot of things that recovery gave me that I never had before.
What do you think was different this time around trying to get clean? So you got clean. You tried to get clean when you were like 22, and then you just kind of kept using for a year.
So yeah, well yeah, 21, 22, and then I was in a relationship. I was in a relationship when I first, you know, came into the rooms. And, you know, she was always someone that didn't really think she was an addict. And, you know, I get it. People struggle with that, especially when you're young. You know, it's hard to think that you're an addict. And then I remember she left the rooms, right? And then I stayed because, you know, it was a toxic relationship. We kept breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. And I met my sponsor, you know, and I stayed clean for a while. I worked the first 3 steps. You know, I was going to meetings. I picked up a home group. I was going to conventions, you know, things I never did. But, like, I didn't really do enough, you know. Like, for me, I feel like I didn't do enough. Because if I would have known, like, now, like, if I would have known better back then, I wouldn't have left in the first place, you know. And I left, and I got back together with my ex-girlfriend, you know. And I left the rooms for, like, 8-9 months, dude. And it wasn't until, like, finally, like, I was finally just done. Like, I was done. Like, you know, because we couldn't stay clean together. And, like, now, like, I realized, like, my last run, like, now, when I use it, I die. Like, I'm fucking overdosing. She's bringing me back to life. Like, and that's really traumatic for 2 people, let alone, like, you know, 1 person. And it wasn't
until... She would Narcan you?
Yeah, she would Narcan me. And, like...
What does Narcan feel like?
It feels like shit, dude.
It puts you like in withdrawal, right?
Yeah, like instant.
Yeah.
Like immediate withdrawal. And like you're just like, well, what the fuck just happened, you know? And like your nose is all clogged and shit, and like you're fucking sweating, and it's like, dude, like damn, dude, like. But it speeds up the process. But yeah, 4 separate occasions where, you know, she had to do that to me.
Wow, you've been Narcan 4 times?
All by her, yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
What would she do? Just keep buying more?
We would just have them in the apartment, dude.
Yeah.
Like she would just get Narcan and she would put it in this drawer. Yeah. She'd leave one in the bathroom, and I'm like,
I know people think it's weird because like I've Narcan 1 person, but like I have them in my car.
I have them in my car too. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, dude. So like it would just be around the house, and like in my head, like thinking about it now, I was like, damn, like who wouldn't like. Like, you're not in the rooms, right? Like, you both know you're drug addicts. Like back then, it's like, okay, like, I can use, there's Narcan here. So you can just Narcan me, like, it'll all be okay. And I'll do it all over again.
My boy said, my boy, he AMA'd from rehab. And then he was posting, like, bags of heroin on his Instagram. And I called him, and he was like, yeah, well, I'm using it by myself, da-da-da, I fucked up. And then he's like, well, the guy who sold it to me gave me Narcan, but I can't Narcan myself. It's just crazy how, like, that's what it comes to. It's like, there are people selling fentanyl.
Yeah,
and
man.
then also, like, here's Narcan.
Because they know.
Because, like, you know, there's, like, a 50% chance you're going to need it.
Yeah.
But but he was like, well, no one's here, so I can't Narcan myself. So I'm trying to be safe about it. That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, dude, that's just insane. You say, I feel like it's 90% of the time. You know, most people don't fucking make it back. And that's why I'm glad that I made back. You know, I made it back, right? Because in the IP that it talks about, you know, recovery and relapse, it says, you know, some members, they relapse and they have a jarring experience. And then they come back into the rooms with more vigorous application. And that's what happened to me, dude. I remember that day where I finally, like, left that situation, right? And I call one of my good friends and I'm fucking breaking down and I'm fucking crying, right? Like I just, like, because I knew deep down, even when I was out there, I was like, I need to go back to the rooms. Like, even though, like, I didn't really apply myself that first go around in recovery, like, NA still changed my life. You know, just by being there, it changed my life, right? It got me connected with all the right people, you know, like, and I was racking up days clean. And, you know, so when the time came when I was ready to come back, like, you know, I also was like, damn, like, I just ghosted everybody for like 8 months. I didn't answer texts. I didn't answer calls. I went like zero dark dirty mode on all social medias. Like, everybody thought I was dead. I remember when I came back, somebody was like, dude, I already had your RIP post ready. And I was like, and I didn't think people cared that much. You know, when I came back, I was like, you guys remember me? Like, I didn't think I left that much of an impression. And that's what's so crazy about the rooms is that, you know, you don't have to be here a long time to make an impact.
Yeah, and people, I mean, a lot of people, like, it's crazy how many people, like, talk shit about, like, 12-step programs, but it's like, man, I've seen so much people show me love for, like, no reason and, like, remember my name and,
yeah, man.
Like, till this day, it's, like, a big thing. Like, I still remember people who, like, called me when I didn't go to a meeting and, like, you know, thought, you know, was just wondering how, even till today, like, I get so many nice text messages from random people. And I'm almost desensitized to it, but, like, normal people don't get that. Like, bro, I get text messages all the time from people who are like, hey, man, haven't heard from you in a while. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being in my life. Like, people don't do that. You know, they're not, like, in touch with their feelings.
Yeah, and I'm starting to get those now, too, from, like, you know, newcomers, people who've come after me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, I have to be doing something right, you know? And, like, I talk to my sponsor about it all the time. And it's funny, right? Because when I came back, dude, I think I begged him for like 3 weeks straight to sponsor me again. And I understand why he didn't want to, you know, it's because it's like, dude, like, you know, he doesn't want to get close to an addict because he doesn't want, you know, someone to fucking die again, especially an addict who's not working a program. Yeah. Because that's what happens. And, you know, I begged him. I was like, no, this time is different. This time is different. This time is different. But I realized that, you know, it's like, you know, I had to show him, right? And even to myself, like, I owed it to myself. I was like, dude, like, what's the worst that can happen if I actually, like, take the suggestions and put the work in? Like, well, what's the worst that can happen? I couldn't really see a negative outcome. Yeah. Right? And good, bad, or indifferent, like, you know, at least I'm clean. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll be okay. You know? And so for me, like, the steps changed my life, right? I'm on my 4th step now. It's a rough one. I've never worked the 4th step before. So... And I've noticed, right, that life is funny in the way, like, whatever's going on in your life, like, applies to whatever step you're on. And, like, I used to hear people say that before, and I was like, that's just coincidence. But, like, it's really not. You know, like, my 3rd step, dude, like, that shit kicked my ass for, like, 2 months, you know, because I was living in self-will, and I wasn't, you know, like, giving it up to God, right? Yeah. Because for me, right, I just recently shared about this at a meeting, right, like, because my whole issue with God was that he fucking gave me the short stick. I got the short end of the stick. Like, why the fuck did you let all these things happen to me if you're supposed to be a loving and caring God? Like, you don't give a fuck about me. So I was like, I was always acting on my own self-will. And then, you know, I worked the 3rd step, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, so you're telling me that I can take all of this shit that I have no control over and give it to somebody else, and they'll deal with it for me? I was like, okay, perfect. That works. You know, and now, you know, right in my 4th step, like, I'm starting to, like, relive a lot of the things that I went through. And it, you know, I'm on the guilt and shame part of it now. And, you know, I've been stuck on it for a little while just because it's like I have a lot of guilt and shame. Things that I didn't do to myself and things that I did do. You know, so I'm just trying to, like, you know, navigate through it. But, you know, I realized that, like, even in this short amount of time, right, I have 11 months, but, I've been back for 9 months. Like these 9 months that I've been back in the rooms, like, they say God giveth and God taketh away, right? And he took me out of a situation, right? And then he put me back in this situation, being back in the rooms, and I got all the people back in my life, and then more, I met new people that, like, I never thought I would meet, and people that I got close with. And
when I got clean, one of like my biggest things was like letting go of my friends. Like I had 2 friends, and I remember thinking like I'm never gonna find friends again. Like these are my only friends, and just feeling like I'm turning my back. Like getting away from your drug addict friends is like the hardest part, because like when I was, I only had like 2 people, but it's like those are the only 2 people, and then like. In recovery, sometimes it's like intimidating because everyone's like so close to each other, and you just feel like you're never gonna be there. Yeah. But they're close because they've known each other for so long. And you don't realize like relationships. Like I heard John say this last night at a meeting. He said like relationships aren't found; they're built. Yes. And I didn't understand that. I would just look at people's relationships and like envy them, and not realize that relationships take time. And when you're using, as soon as you build it, you tear it down. So you build it and you tear it down. So you never have real relationships. And when I was using, I just thought like no one wanted to have a relationship with me, or I wasn't capable of them. I didn't understand that if I just stayed clean, I would have them. Yeah. And man, in recovery, you meet so many amazing people. Yeah, man.
And it was like you said, right? They're like what John said, like they're not found, they're built. And for me, like I remember when I first came in the rooms that first time, like, and my friends now that I have now, my closest friends, like, dude, they didn't fucking know me, right? And like they took me in. Without even having to know me, and like I was like this little baby bird with a broken wing, and it was like he said, right, like there's a difference between people who love you and people who nurture you, right? And that's what the rooms did for me. They nurtured me back to life, and it's not everybody you meet, right? Because not everybody you meet in recovery is like you're gonna be solid with, or you're gonna be cool with.
Have a crazy impact in your life. Yeah. What's it like being young and getting clean? Because like that's what everyone asks me. So it's like, do you feel like your life was over? Do you like feel like you can't drink anymore? Do you like, is it hard? Like,
well, I was never much of a drinker. I didn't really care enough to drink. But like for me, like, I didn't feel like my life was over because I got to experience a lot in my life. Yeah. Even as it like, how some people say.
That's how I felt when I got clean. It's like, bro,
I've been doing this since 14, 15 years
crack.
Old. Yeah, like
I don't feel like I was missing out. But there was a part of me that like felt like alien. Like, because you would meet other kids your age or other people your age, and you would just see how like they're just innocently playing beer pong or like doing acid. And sometimes now like mushrooms has become so like normal in society that like there's so many people who ask me to do mushrooms. And like I tell them I'm in recovery, and they're like, oh, but you should try them, like it would help you or whatever. And like some people just don't get it. Like I would, like, I'm not doing mushrooms. I've done psychedelics. Like I've done all the drugs in the world. And the reality is like I'm just not giving up my clean time. And I truly believe that like all the spirituality people are looking for in mushrooms, like I found through the rooms. Yeah. And like I'm not looking for any type of like spiritual experience. Like to me, like true spirituality is when you could find like a spiritual experience in like a regular everyday situation. So it's like I don't need to hike a mountain to feel close to God on mushrooms. Like I could go to Publix and be standing in line and like see a baby in front of me and feel like connection with something or like beauty for life. Like if you can't find that in your everyday life, like you're not really spiritual.
And that's crazy you say that, because like for me, like I've had a few near life death experiences where I either should have been dead or I was pretty much dead and I had to be resuscitated back to life. Yeah. And like, I'm coming up on a celebration, right? And sometimes I'll be like now that it's gotten closer, like there'll be times where I'll be driving to work in my car and like I'm listening to music, but then like I like to play with the idea of like, okay, like, because I like to talk to myself a lot. And I'm like, okay, like if you were standing up there right now, like, like what would you say? Like what would be the first thing you say? And I'll just start talking, right, about like my life and how I felt my whole life and all the pain that I've been through, right, and everything that it took to get back here after leaving, like, and I'll just start fucking crying, dude. Like just straight crying, like nonstop boohoo crying, because like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that like, all the things that I went through, all the pain and suffering that I went through my entire life brought me here to the rooms, right? Like I'm glad I went through it. Like now I'm glad I went through it, because if I didn't go through it, like I wouldn't be here, and I don't know where I would be, but I'm glad that I don't have to find out, you know, I'm glad that I'm here now.
Yeah.
You know, and I got so many people in my life who are rooting for me. You know, and that was something that I never really had before. Nobody used to give a fuck about me. Nobody was calling me or checking up on me or like wanting to see how I'm doing. And back then I didn't care. You know, I never gave a fuck. It was more so of like, you know, everything was just a means to an end before, right? Like, and the end was getting high, and like I didn't want to do anything with my life. I was just like, I just want to get high for the rest of my life, and then I'm gonna die, and then that's it, you know. Like now I'm in the rooms, and there's so many things that I can be, and there's so many things that I want to be that I don't even know where to start. I get overwhelmed thinking about all the possibilities, but like that's a good problem to have, you know, for someone who used to think that they were just fucking nothing and they were never gonna amount to anything because they never thought they were good enough and they were always told that they weren't good enough. Like, I'll never forget, dude, my dad, like, and our relationship now is a little, you know, it's a little better, but like I just remember him just saying, like, I remember one time he was kicking me out of the house. I think it was like the third or fourth time he kicked me out of the house, but he was just like, he was yelling at me, but he was talking to my mom while he was yelling at me because he couldn't even just like look at me anymore. He's like, he's a fucking thug. You're raising a fucking thug. I don't want no fucking gangbanger in my fucking house bringing all these fucking problems home and being a fucking piece of shit. He's never going to fucking amount to anything. And all he's doing is fucking killing you. And you're crying yourself to sleep at night. And I'm just like standing there. I'm like, damn, dude. Like, that's how you really feel? Like, okay. Like, say less. Like, and like, even though like he had every right to feel that way.
Yeah.
It was just like.
Also, it's like, man, it's like when your parents aren't educated on like addiction and stuff like that, like they don't see it as like a illness or they think of it as like a real moral, like a moral dilemma. And so they think there's something morally wrong with you.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like my uncle is his oldest brother's in recovery. Yeah. But I get that I triggered a lot of shit from him. A lot of his childhood shit I triggered. Yeah. Like big time. And I seen that. You know, because he used to like now, like we've talked about it a few times where he was like, look, dude, like I've seen my older brother drive my mother to her death, you know, like years before she was supposed to die. And she saw the same thing with my mom. Yeah. And I was like, holy fuck, like I didn't, you know, and you don't realize what you're doing until after you're doing it. And, you know, I mean, I felt bad, but like I still like held a lot of resentment. I have a lot of resentments towards him, you know, and I'm still working on him. You know, because, like, why is it that, like, you know, my mom had to play mom and dad? Like, you know, like, when it came to, like, girls and sex, like, you weren't having no talk with me. I had to figure that shit out on my own. Dude, I had sex when I was, like, 14 for the first time, right? And my mom's trying to have the talk with me at 17. I was like, dude, you're 3 years late. Like, I've been having sex already. Like, you know, like, all these shit that a dad's supposed to do for their son, he never did, right? So I had to learn it all on my own, right? Yeah. And
I think as I get older, I realize like a lot of people didn't have role model parents.
No.
Like most people, their parents, they might have not been like abusive or whatever, but they're not like textbook parents. You know, a lot of parents have never read a book on parenting. A lot of parents have never taken a class. A lot of parents have no idea about child psychology. So if you don't know those things, you're not going to do things quote unquote by the book. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? You do your best and it builds character. Like, if I had a kid, would I do that? No. You know what I mean? I would really want to educate myself on, like, just the basics of, like, parenting. Because a lot of it has been, like, there's studies and books based on it. It's kind of crazy people would have kids and not really think about that. But, like, some people just aren't like that. They just have kids and they do the best they can. And they're just trying to provide. And a lot of them, they can only parent to the level that they were parenting. Yeah. So it's like, they're just going to do what their parents did, and their goal is to do a little bit better than them. And if they're doing better than their parents, in their eyes, they're doing so much better. And that's really like the only type of explanation I have for people who grow up with parents that aren't like, quote unquote, textbook the best parents.
Yeah, and like for me, I always told myself, I was like, man, if I ever have a kid, especially a son, like I'm just going to be everything I wanted in a dad. Yeah. You know, all I wanted was someone to tell me that they love me and that they were paying attention to me. And that they see me and they see that I'm hurting and I'm going through something. And instead of like fucking taking your fucking thumb and pushing it into my stab wound, you're trying to help me heal it. Yeah. You know, because that's all I've ever wanted from my father, from, you know, relationships and even friendships. Like, you know, because like I'm the type of person, like, it's not like it's obvious when I'm hurting, right? It's obvious when I'm not feeling okay. Like I might not say it, but I can show it, you know, and like, but I'm also the type of person where like, you know, I was wired to just not talk about how I feel. And I had to like swallow it. and just like let it fester until it would go away. But then it would just blow up, right? Like sometimes, you know, you go through so many things and you stay quiet and like you try to like, you know, have all this pent up aggression, but then like you get into something with like some random person that doesn't even know you and like they're having a bad day, and then you just let it out on them. You know, it's misdirected anger, and I have a huge misdirection of anger, like big time. Yeah. You know, but because it's like I can't get mad at who I really want to get mad at. You know, and like, and not necessarily that I want to. I mean, I do want to get mad at them, but like I also don't, because like, you know, like I have like this little like line, right, that like if I get pushed past that line, like it's hard for me to come back, and then I start saying things that I don't mean. And I start doing things that are hard to come back from. You know, so I'm like, but again, being in recovery, like these are all things that
I'm going to work on.
I can work on.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people live their life like this is just how I am, and like in recovery, it's like we're so open to like being molded or like changing our personality. And when I got clean, like I remember like working the steps and being like, I don't want to change my personality. I like my personality, but it's just like if you don't think there's room for improvement, like what are you doing with your life? Yeah, you know. And
that's what the steps are.
For sure.
That's for me. That's what the steps are. The steps are so fucking important, you know. And actually, when I heard you, it was the one that said that the steps are the foundation of this program. Yeah. You know, and without the steps, like this program isn't it? Like, like what do you hear if you're not working steps? Yeah. You know, because I've seen a lot of people, and I was that person too, where I would just go to meetings, and like I only went to meetings to see the people at the meetings, and like, you know, fellowship. But like fellowshipping can only take you so fucking far, because at the end of the day, when you go to sleep at night and you lay your head on the pillow, that person's not there with you, you know, and you're having to live with all these things, right? You're going to all these meetings and you're not putting any work in, and you're wondering why your life is still shit. And it's because you're not doing the work. Like, you're showing up, you know, but you're not participating in your recovery. Yeah. And that was something I learned when I started actually participating in my recovery. I was like, oh, so my life does get better when I take the suggestions and I do what I'm told to do. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and then like the more effort you put in, the harder it is to throw it away. Yeah. So like when you made a big effort in your recovery, you're not just gonna throw it away over nothing. So it's like when you're working steps, you're going to meetings, you're doing service, you're calling your sponsor, you got a sponsee, like you're doing all this stuff. When you do want to use, it's so hard because you're like, damn, I just did all this shit. Yeah. And like now, you know, it's not like, you know, you're just staying clean. It's like you have all these things that you've invested in.
Yeah. No, most definitely. Like, and it's crazy because like I've gone through a lot of things this year, right? This time around, that like back then I would have used over. For sure. You know, but like now it's like, you know, home groups, service commitments. I did H&I for a while, you know, and like even like these last 2 months, like I have 2 home groups because I was like, dude, like, cause I was in a funk, I was in a bad funk, you know. I didn't like how I was feeling and what I was going through, but I was like, well, I don't want to use over it because this is a stupid reason to use over. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? So I got, you know, a commitment for 1 month, and then I got commitment for another month, and then now it pushed me all the way here to my clean time, and I'm like, well, now I'm definitely not gonna fuck it up like over this, like, and I'm working steps, like, you know, I'm doing all the things that I need to do, and like I feel better about myself.
For sure. And it's like when you change that in your brain, that like, damn, when you're going through something, you got to do more. A lot of people, when they're going through shit, they do less. Yeah. So it's like a lot of people, like they have a death come up and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to slack off and I'm going to not go to meetings and I'm not going to call my sponsor and not going to pray and do these things. Dude. But when you flip that, where you're like, damn, when shit's bad, I got to start doing more. Yeah. Then if you could get to a point where it's like when it's going good, you want to do more to keep it. Yeah. So when you have that switch in you where you're like, damn, when it's going bad, I gotta go harder. And then when it's going good, you also want to go harder, so you don't have to get back to it.
Yeah, and it's also all about perspective. I feel like you know, my sponsor tells me like there's be times I'll call him and I'm like, I'm having a bad day, and he's like, you're not really having a bad day. He's like, a bad day. He's like, did you use today? I'm like, no. Did you find out you have cancer? No. Did your mom die? No. Like, did you get into a car accident? No. He's like, then you didn't have a bad day. You're just feeling bad, and your perspective is wrong. You got to change your perspective, right? This is how you feel. Why do you feel that? Why do you feel this way? Yeah. And what can you do to get out of it? You know? And for me, sometimes, right? And he instilled this into me. He's like, dude, you think you're having a bad day? Call a fucking newcomer who has like 20 days clean and hear about their day.
Yeah.
And then compare it to yours.
What's crazy is when the newcomer is more grateful than you are.
Yeah. I'm like, fuck.
Sometimes you call like someone like 2 days clean. You're like, man, I'm so grateful to be clean. I don't have a job. I got no money, but like at least I'm like alive. And you're just like,
he has holes in his shirt and he's wearing, you know, he's fucking soles coming out of his shoes and shit.
Yeah, he has no idea how he's gonna pay his rent.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
but that guy's fucking smiling. So why can't I be smiling?
Found a bicycle. He's gonna fix up the ride. Yeah. But,
he's been eating at a fucking dumpster and
happy.
shit. Yeah.
Hey, so I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. I appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Congrats on coming up on a year, and almost happy birthday, bro.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Glad you decided to let me be on here.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, man.